In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe, and peace and blessing be upon our Master and Prophet Muhammad and his pure household and his noble companions and all divine messengers. O God, hasten the arrival of Imam al-Mahdi and grant him good health and victory, and make us his followers and those who attest to his rightfulness. Mr. President, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful to the Almighty God who has granted me the opportunity to appear before this World Assembly once again. I wish to begin by commemorating those who lost their lives in the horrible flood in Pakistan and express my heartfelt sympathy with the families who lost their loved ones, as well as with the people and the government of Pakistan. I urge everyone to assist their fellow men and women as a humane duty. Allow me to thank His Excellency Mr. Ali Abdussalam Tareki, the President of the 64th session of the United Nations General Assembly, for all his efforts during his tenure. And I would also like to congratulate Mr. Joseph Tace, the President of the 65th session of the United Nations General Assembly, and wish him all success. Dear colleagues, in past years, I spoke to you about some hopes and concerns. Some concerns involve the crisis in families, the security challenge, disrespect for human dignity, the deterioration of world economy, climate change, and disregard for human aspirations to achieve justice and lasting peace. After about 100 years of domination, the capitalist system and existing world order are unable to provide appropriate solutions to the problems that society faces. Thus, their demise has arrived. Therefore, I shall try to examine several causes for their failure and picture features for an ideal order. The first cause relates to our attitudes and beliefs. As you are well aware, divine prophets had the mission to invite everyone to monotheism, to love and justice, and to show mankind the path to prosperity. They invite men to contemplation and to seek knowledge in order to better appreciate the truth and to refrain from atheism and egoism. The essence of the message of prophets is one and the same. Every messenger has endorsed the messenger before him and given glad tidings about the next prophet to come, who presented a more complete version of the religion in accordance with man's capacity at the time. This trend continued until the last messenger of God, who presented the perfection of an all-inclusive religion. In opposition to the call by the prophets, the egoists and greedy stood up against their clear call, revolting against their messages. Nimrod countered Hazrat Abraham. Pharaoh countered Hazrat Moses. And the greedy countered Hazrat Jesus Christ and Hazrat Muhammad. May peace be upon all our prophets. In the recent centuries, human ethics and values have been rejected as a cause for backwardness. They were even portrayed as opposing wisdom and science because the The proclaimers of religion in the dark ages of the West inflicted man with backwardness. Therefore, man's disconnection from heaven has detached him from his true self. Man, with his potential to understand the secrets of the universe, his instinct to seek truth, his aspiration for justice and perfection, his quest for beauty and purity, and his capacity, as God has said, to represent him on earth, has been reduced to a creature restricted by the materialistic world, with a mission to maximize individualistic pleasures. Human instinct then replaced true human nature. Human beings and nations are considered rivals, and the happiness of an individual or a nation is upheld at the cost of others, to the point of even eliminating or suppressing others, rather than developing a constructive and evolutionary method of cooperation. It was replaced by a destructive struggle for survival. The lust for capital and domination replaced monotheism, which is the gate to love and unity. This widespread clash of the egoist and the with the divine values gave way to slavery and colonialism. A large part of the world came under the domination of a few Western states. Tens of millions of people were taken to slavery, and tens of millions of families were shattered as a result. All the resources, the rights, and the cultures of the colonized nations were plundered. Lands were occupied, and indigenous people were humiliated and mass murdered. Yet nations rose up. Colonialism was alienated, and the independence of nations was recognized. Thus, the hope for respect, prosperity, and security was revived amongst nations. In the beginning of the past century, beautiful mottos of freedom, human rights, and democracy created hopes for healing the deep wounds of the past. Today, however, not only those dreams are not realized, but memories, even at times more bitter than before, have been recorded in our history. As a result of the two world wars, the occupation of Palestine, the Korean and the Vietnam wars, the Iraq war against Iran, the occupation of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as many wars in Africa, hundreds of millions of people were killed, wounded, or displaced. Terrorism, illicit drug production, poverty, and the social gaps have increased. The dictatorial and coup d'etat governments in Latin America committed unprecedented crimes with the support of the West. Instead of disarmament, the proliferation and stockpiling of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons expanded, placing the world under a larger threat. As a result, apparently, the very same old goals of colonialists and the slave masters were pursued, but this time around with a new facade. The second cause for the failure of the existing world order and capitalism has to do with the current global management and its ruling structures. The League of Nations and after that the United Nations were established with the promise to bring about peace, security, and the realization of human rights, which in fact meant a global management. One can analyze the current system of governance of world affairs by examining three events. The first is the event of the 11th September 2001, which has indeed affected the entire world for almost a decade. We recall that at the time, suddenly, the news of an attack on the Twin Towers was broadcast, using numerous footages of the incident. Almost all governments and known figures that mattered strongly condemned this incident. But then a propaganda machine came into full force. It was implied that the whole world was now exposed to a huge danger, namely that of terrorism, and that the only way to save the world would be to deploy forces into Afghanistan. Eventually, Afghanistan and shortly thereafter, Iraq were occupied. Now, please take note. It was said that some 3,000 people were killed on September 11, for which we are all very saddened. Yet, up until now, in Afghanistan and Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, millions wounded and displaced, and the conflict is still going on and expanding. In identifying those responsible behind the September 11 attacks, there were three viewpoints. First, that a very powerful and complex terrorist group able to successfully cross all layers of the American intelligence and security carried out the attack. This is the prevalent viewpoint, which has been supported mainly and advocated by American statesmen. Second, that some segments within the U.S. government orchestrated the attack to reverse the declining American economy and its grips on the Middle East in order to save the Zionist regime. The majority of the American people, as well as most nations and politicians around the world,